All right, so Ryan is going to be presenting on our latest installment here of the Eastern Region Sign Sharing webinar series on utilizing GR2 as a comprehensive situational awareness tool. So let me pass on over to Ryan.
All right, I will share my screen here. Let's see. All right, see if we can get into the. All right, does everybody see? Let's see. I'm not sure. It's got the presentation mode on one side and the speakers mode on the other. Are you guys seeing? Which one are y'all seeing?
Neither. You're not showing your screen at the moment.
Uh-oh. Let's see.
You need to.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it stopped one step short of actually sharing the whole thing.
All right, there it goes.
Okay, I'm just gonna set them both to the full screen mode. Okay, so the talk today is about utilizing the framework that GR2, or in this case, GR3 or GR2, not analyst, will also work for a lot of this stuff. Not some of the capabilities I'm going to talk about here at the beginning, some of the more advanced stuff that I suspect most people are aware of, but I'm just going to hit on. This actually came from a presentation that I did for my local office here, just about GR in general. And it was a little bit more beginner level stuff, but I've taken some of that out and added some things. But the kind of the base of this presentation, there's Kevin and Topeka put together a really nice GR for Dummies presentation that really goes into the nitty gritty of all of the different settings you can do. I think most of us in the Weather Service are at least aware of a lot of that stuff. So I did kind of take out some of the rudimentary stuff or expand upon it for a little bit more advanced audience. But definitely nod to Kevin at Topeka for some of these slides. And also a good friend of mine who used to be at the Raleigh office, but is now out in Goodland, Kansas, Brandon Vincent. He did a lot of the coding work that I'll show with some of the stuff. And I was there along the way as kind of a tester, giving him ideas and telling him what I thought maybe could be tweaked. But Brandon Vincent definitely deserves some recognition for some of the stuff I'm going to show here. So GR, at least in my opinion, the real advantages come from its streamlined presentation and the ability to customize a lot of things within the program. You can see full resolution base data, dual pull from not only your home radar, but any other radar you'd like. And that's one thing that really gets a little frustrating within AWIPS is, the hoops you have to jump through to get high res data, even from a neighboring radar when, within GR, it's a click or two away of having everything you want. So even in severe situations, obviously still using AWIPS D2D for warnings and stuff, but I will certainly have a GR window open concurrently with that to, improve kind of a quick glance at the situation is a little bit easier, at least for me, within GR versus the AWIPS counterparts. Okay, this is kind of beginner stuff, but I wanted to touch on this. Mike Gibson, the guy that's responsible for the GR suite of software, is not a meteorologist. He can be a little slow with improvements and suggestions, but he's making some progress. I had the opportunity to speak with him when I was still down in the Mobile office. There was a local storm conference that he spoke at, and I kind of said, hey, would you mind adding a capability for your warning colors to at least match our colors within AWIPS, yellow for severe, red for tornado, and purple for confirmed TOR. And he actually added that shortly after I spoke to him. So I appreciate that, but he's not a meteorologist, and you kind of tell, at least on the right side of the slide here, the velocity, the default velocity color table leaves a lot to be desired. Very little change in coloring from say 20 to 40 knots, and even 40 up to 50 knots are still, kind of the same green color. So things kind of get lost in there. One of the first things I do when we have a new hire here or somebody that's not familiar with GR is immediately change the velocity color table because it's just terrible. This is the same loop with my preferred color table, but you can really see a lot more detail. Certainly the color bar for velocity has lots of color change, say between 30 and 50 knots. And certainly when you get up higher, things really start to stand out. You can pick out a much more dangerous circulation from one that's maybe not so bad. In that same note, within GR, there's some capabilities that came around, I believe, around version 2.7 or thereabouts, where you can drop a point on your velocity and hold down control, and it will actually read out a whole bunch of environmental data or radar data from that point based on Rich Thompson's paper, I believe, 2013, kind of highlighting using VROT and the diameter of the couplet to at least get an idea of what kind of range you're looking at for a tornado. So this is super helpful with the new Tor IBW stuff that came out, in the last year or two, and is really, really helpful as far as going considerable or even catastrophic with a tornado warning. I don't know if these data are available within AWIPS. If they are, I don't know where they are, and certainly not as nicely packaged as this is. So that definitely is one point that is better in my opinion than a similar capability within AWIPS. This doesn't come up a whole lot in my neck of the woods, but occasionally we do get some frozen precip. There's a toggle on the top of the GR window that will make an attempt at a rain snow line. One thing to keep in mind, though, it's all based on RAP. They do not ingest any surface hobs for that. So, while it's a nice capability to have, I've seen it be quite wrong. And actually, in this image here, these are some of the place files I'm going to be highlighting a little bit later, but you can see into the suspected snow area, we definitely have rain going quite a ways into the colder air on these observations here. So grain of salt with that one. Just touch on this real quick. The ability to do cross sections in GR is pretty well known. The 2D cross sections are great, especially folks that have had some experience with non-88Ds where you can have a little bit more control doing cappies and that kind of thing. This is a similar capability to that. I believe I haven't used FSI in years, but I believe FSI has the capability to do at least the 2D cross sections like this. Just highlighting here that the RAP data for your particular location gets downloaded when you start up GR, and it'll at least have a decent idea of where the 0 and -20 lines are indicated with yellow or red respectively. One of my favorite things about GR Analyst is the 3D cross sections. And once you know how to manipulate what they call an alpha table within there, you can really get some good information about storm depth and kind of how tall certain reflectivities are. The main thing with that is just to once you open this alpha table, it's not super apparent how you manipulate this, but this slide really kind of shows it. Your DBZ values for whatever color table you got are along the bottom, and then the height of this diagonal line away from the bottom here determines how opaque that particular reflectivity level would be. So when you get it straight out of the box, it's set up like this, and you can see the outline of the storm, but you really can't look inside terribly easily. So it's if you do a little bit of manipulation, this is one that I did, just kind of has peaks at different reflectivity levels, and getting a little higher in here as we get towards the higher reflectivity. And you can really see, it's almost like an X-ray into the storm. And when you do it in the program, you can pan and zoom and do all kinds of stuff. But this was from a northwest flow supercell we had here 2 or 3 weeks ago. You can really see the weak echo region in the vault here. I don't think this capability exists anywhere within AWIPS. And I use it all the time, especially in severe weather situations. Also, you can look at one particular DBZ level on an ISO surface. This is great for looking at how much mass do I have above the -20 level, say for downburst winds or something like that. So it's very, very capable. You can change which level you want to highlight in the ISO surface and see size of hail cores and stuff like that. Very, very nice capability to have, especially in severe weather situations. All right, so most of this talk is going to be about what you can overlay on top of the radar data. And I use GR and probably use it more than most folks, but I'll have it up even when there's not a single echo on the radar. And these overlays, either shape files or, as I'll talk about in a second, place files, are really where GR has a chance to shine as a situational awareness tool. So shape files, GIS applications, not terribly dynamic as far as changing weather situations. These are static for the most part. Road locations, it's nice if you get a phone call, hey, I've got a report on this road. When you mouse over any one of these individual tiny roads, you can see it will read out the name of the road down on the bottom left of the screen, which can be helpful for finding places to put an LSR. It's also super helpful in damage surveys after the fact. You can load up the radar, archived radar from whatever event you're surveying, and be able to mouse over these individual roads and kind of see if there's a way to get back to that road from where you are. It's been very helpful on surveys. But place files is really where you can up your game as far as situational awareness. Some places they do charge for access to the place files. Allison House has a lot of great stuff, including total lightning data. I actually use that and pay for it. But there are also quite a few places out there where you can get free place files, and that's where my friend Brandon Vincent's site comes in. All of his place files are absolutely free, and he keeps them up to date as much as possible. So we'll get kind of right into that. There's just a picture of what my place file manager looks like. It's quite full, and I end up having to move things down to the bottom that aren't getting used quite as much, but quite a few of them on there. So this Red Team Weather site is the one that Brandon started. We actually started it, I believe, probably close to 10 years ago. He and I met in undergrad and have gone storm chasing together a few times, and it was really nice to just have one place to look at all the basically the meso analysis of any particular location. So that's kind of what started him down this trail here, and show you kind of what he's come up with. This is just a quick loop that I saved before my presentation a year or two ago for the local office here. And, roughly you can already tell just right off the bat, dealing with northwest surface flow. These filled in dark dots means that there's like full cloud cover. Occasional fog will pop up here, and some of these icons will take a little getting used to. I can glance down and know exactly what it is, but it's very helpful. Even with no echoes on the radar, I can tell where the winds are. I can see some information offshore. It's super helpful, and I think a little bit more intuitive than just looking at OBS on either OBSplot or AWIPS, because an OBSplot, you might not remember exactly where each location is. And then in AWIPS, you don't have quite the capability that this has. If I were to mouse over any one of these observation sites, not only do I get the full METAR, but also completely decoded along with some extra information down here at the bottom, the surface wet bulb, the dew point depression, theta E, and this is one that I asked for down here at the very bottom. I asked for it specifically is the gust to wind ratio. We tend to do a decent gust factor over land and less so over water. So seeing how right my guess was in the grids is helpful just to be able to see that ratio. So this isn't just for marine offices. This is a plot, basically the same information, but with an aviation bent. So it's showing visibility below each station plot, and to the left, it shows the ceiling. So obviously we're looking at a rough aviation weather morning here with plenty of IFR in red, LIFR in kind of the pink, and VLIFR in some of the darker purples here. And those are color coded the same as they are in like the UCAR surface analysis. So it's kind of intuitive if you're familiar with that. Like I can look at this, and obviously we're socked in just about everywhere, but with a dense fog type situation, maybe at the end of a midnight shift, I can start to see these individual OBS go down to a quarter mile, and it really helps inform where a dense fog advisory or potentially an SPS needs to be put out without having to see it on OBSplot and not know exactly where each OB is in relation to each other spatially. So it's super helpful for this kind of application, as well as for offshore stuff. So this place file is for offshore buoys, and then I have superimposed on that is a wave height place file that just prints out a number. If I were to mouse over any one of these that have wave information, the pop-up box that comes up will have the wave height, but this capability allows you to just look down and tell what your waves are doing at a glance. It also has ships. That's these kind of red dot ones out here offshore. And those are somewhat helpful, but they also are a little spurious sometimes. Some of you don't know quite how tall these ships are. Their winds will be quite a bit above what a surface buoy would have. So grain of salt with the ships, but as meteorologists, we're kind of more information the better. Let me sort out what looks bad and what doesn't. But give me all the information you got. Oops, under. Another nice place file is for AHAPS data. Here as a coastal office, we deal with a lot of coastal flooding, as in addition to regular river type flooding. This one can get a little busy on the screen. There are lots of gauges all over the place. I typically won't leave this one on all the time. I'll turn it on when I know I'm going to have either some hydro or coastal flood issues, but it is nice when you mouse over it. It'll give you kind of what the water level is and the different flood stages, regular, moderate, and major. So that's helpful for dealing with hydro situations. One that I've used quite a bit in the last few weeks is just a dedicated heat index. So all of these single variable plots, and this being one, basically work off the same data that the METAR or original station plot ones work off of, but instead of plotting everything, it plots just one variable that you might be interested in. So in this case, heat index, we have a spot down here in Edenton that always just has horrendous dew points, and their heat index might be 5, even 10 degrees more than sites just a little farther inland. So it's nice to be able to see kind of real time what what the observations are doing without having to mouse over or certainly without having to do any calculations yourself. So here's a list of I think this is all of them that he's got on there right now. The wind gust plot has come in handy, certainly in the springtime when fire weather is more of an issue for us here locally. I'll plot just the wind gusts versus the entire station plot. This one, wet bulb, is fantastic in the winter. We almost never get a clean cut winter event where it's just one P type. So being able to watch the wet bulb, on a loop with the radar, you can kind of see where, maybe some drier air is coming in and might have some concerns there versus another spot. So, just about anything on this list has a certain situation where it could be used. Like I said, these they don't get plotted all the time, but in those certain, 3, 4, 5 days a year when the heat index is really an issue, and similarly for wet bulb or even wind chill, that's not a huge issue for us here as far as any kind of headlines for wind chill, but lots of the country does have that, and you've got, kind of your finger on the pulse of exactly what's happening across your area. You can really, really zero in on where you need to maybe start issuing some products or certainly keeping a closer eye. Now that was a whole lot of Red Team weather stuff. Like I said, all of those are free. They're well maintained. It's a weather service lead who is, kind of putting those things out, and he's always looking for suggestions. In fact, yesterday we've had quite a bit of rain here. Texted me out of the middle of nowhere. Is like, hey, have you thought of anything, any new ideas for stuff to plot? And we've had tons of, urban and small stream floods that, certainly available to view in AWIPS, but occasionally I'd like to know where those are with the radar data. So, within 15 minutes, he was like, okay, I got that one plotted up. So now we can just look at, kind of lower level flood advisories along with the radar data, which we've got some more heavy rain potential here tomorrow. So I think that'll probably get some use, within 24 hours of being created. Red Team Weather is not the only place for place files. Prob Severe, I'm sure you're familiar with, is it's available in AWIPS. But what I really like it for in GR is being able to mouse over a certain tracked cell, kind of get an idea of the RAP's assessment of the convective environment in that particular area. So I'm not looking for so much as a do I warn or do I not warn based on the output of Prob Severe, but I do like being able to see things like affected bulk shear right there, 0 to 1 SRH, any flavor of CAPE you could want, wet bulb height, CAPE in the hail growth region. I mean, a lot of this information is super helpful. Certainly from like a triage perspective, 2 storms kind of look ho-hum, and you can, quickly assess the environment from one over the other, and kind of keep your attention where the environment may be a little bit better. So, this basically keeps me from having to click on the SPC meso analysis. Certainly don't want to leave that entirely, but it's super quick to just be able to mouse over and kind of see how the environment is, and over time how it's changing just with the use of this Prob Severe place file. Also, this object ID down here at the very bottom, there's a site you can go to and input that ID, and it will spit out the environmental parameters, including lightning jump information as well, if I'm not mistaken, for an individual storm. And that can be helpful for tracking trends and things if the radar screen isn't super active and you don't want to focus just on 1 or 2, but you want to check the history of a storm and see if it's continuing to strengthen over time. That's a good resource. One other thing that I have used actually not a whole lot until just recently. The storm that I took that 3D volume picture from, it just had a prolonged northwest flow event here locally, and kind of in a rural part of our CWA, and I happened to turn on this spotter network place file, and lo and behold, there were 2 or 3 guys out chasing the storm, and moused over those dots, and they had phone contact information, email address, social media handles. I actually reached out, just got on the phone and cold called 2 of them and said, hey, what are you seeing out there? Please let us know if you see this or that. And they were very responsive, very helpful, sent us pictures and videos. I hadn't used that capability before, but it came in handy, and it was all because of just a simple place file along with the radar. So there's really a lot of room to keep up with things when you have these additional overlays. Not just the radar data, but you're looking at surface observations, spotters, the environment from Prob Severe. It's just a super easy one-stop shop for a lot of that information that could be gotten elsewhere, but is really, really easy and well packaged with GR. So that's about all I have. The crux of the situation is GR has a lot of customized ability that you can really put to your advantage in high-paced weather situations that we all have to deal with from time to time. So I'd be happy to take any questions, and thanks for listening.
All right, any questions for Ryan?
Hey, Ryan, this is Dave in Buffalo.
Hey, Dave.
Very good presentation. I appreciate it. This is something I've definitely picked up on, especially in the world of teleworking. I have a question related to differences between what you see in AWIPS versus what you see in GR2. And especially since you mentioned that you have it up all the time, I was wondering if you had noticed this. Do you see any differences, like, for example, velocity variability or correlation coefficient variability? And I don't know if this is related to super res versus 8-bit versus level 2, level 3.
Right. There's definitely a bit of a latency issue just with the radar data. It's certainly a little bit faster into AWIPS, but we're on the order of, maybe 30 seconds to a minute before a new scan would come into GR. As far as any differences between the two, I really like about GR is they give us, the full res data right off the bat. Like I have a procedure in AWIPS, for all tilts base data, and I have to go hunting, every time for the actual full resolution correlation coefficient, because the one that's listed in the main menu is smooth somehow. I'm not sure, but the raw CC is available that you have to go and look for. Other than that, the data may look a little different just based on your color table, but the color tables I prefer are actually very similar to what we use in AWIPS here.
Yeah, I can add some of that as well. In terms of the data resolution, yeah, if you're looking at 8-bit data from another radar on AWIPS, that would be a little coarser than what you're seeing on GR2. There are plans, and right now it's targeted for December 1st, to switch the data that's flowing on the SBN from all of the radars from the 8-bit products to the super res products.
Oh, well, that would be a huge improvement.
Yes. Finally, yeah, there was some analysis done, and we found that the SBN backlogs, as they apply to the radar data, are more a function of the number of files rather than the size. So it wasn't an issue to put the bigger super res products on, since they're obviously more useful. When dual pole was first implemented, there was some decisions made, I'm not sure by who, to do some smoothing on the CC and I believe the ZDR. I think there were some concerns in the noisiness of the displays. So that's why those were put on AWIPs. A couple of years ago, basically, it became clear that forecasters were preferring the non-smooth data on GR2. So that's why I think, in particular for the CC, that was subsequently added. But
yeah, they really vary it though. Like it's like 3 or 4 teardowns into like radar products. It's not super easy to find.
Yeah, I mean, you might be able to change that, customize your menus locally. It's probably something then your ITO will have to kind of keep in mind and be able to carry, so that it doesn't get overwritten, or that override doesn't prevent a future menu enhancement from not getting implemented. We had an office once when 8-bit first came out, had some overrides, and it was a year and a half before they were seeing the 8-bit in their AWIPs because they didn't realize their menus were superseding the new default. But that's something I can certainly take back, with me. I think, especially correlation coefficient, which I think is probably the most widely used dual pole product. The raw data isn't excessively noisy, and you don't want to be hiding
Right.
important signatures. So
yeah, that's definitely been my experience. Let me decide what's noise and what's actionable.
Right. I mean, ZDR, that's inherently noisy, so I can kind of understand where that can get a little. I think that may be a little different than CC, which isn't as noisy inherently. So, Dave, did that answer your?
Yeah, I think so. So there's 2 different scenarios for having a different presentation of CC in AWIPs as opposed to what we see on GR2. One is 8-bit versus super res, is that correct? And one is a smoothing that might be occurring?
Yeah, well, basically, GR2 is using level 2 data. And what you're seeing on AWIPs is level 3 data. So it's processed by the RPG. Anything you're seeing on GR2 is straight from the RDA. So that's a fundamental difference. If you're happen to be looking at GR3, that's similar to what you're seeing in AWIPs. It's what's coming out of your RPGs.
All right. Thanks. I appreciate the response.
Any other questions? All right, I guess not. Ryan, thank you very much for a very interesting presentation. We have recorded this, so hopefully we'll have this and yesterday's webinar on the hazardous weather test beds radar convective experiment posted in the next day or 2. So, thanks again, Ryan, and everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you. Great presentation.